Hi, welcome back. In this video, we will be discussing the last module in this week's content, that is the module 6 on basic calculations. I believe you've gone through the grouping in SQL module, that is module 5, and you've been able to execute all the queries presented in that module as seen in the previous video. All right, let's move on to this week's content or this video's focus, which is basic calculations. I would like to expand this. Let's view material to look at the content taught in that module. Okay, so for basic calculations, performing basic calculations, I'd like to let you know that SQL actually provides a wide range of mathematical operations and functions that allow you to perform basic calculations on numeric data stored in your database. These calculations can be used to derive new insights, create customer metrics, or transform data for reporting and analysis purposes. Some of the commonly used mathematical operators in SQL include addition. You can add uh, numeric data, subtraction. You can subtract one value from another, multiplication, which is given by asterisk, division, forward slash, modulus, and so on and so forth. Additionally, SQL provides various inbuilt mathematical functions such as ABS, which stands for absolute value, the round function, which is one thing we've seen, C like CEIL, the floor function, etc., to perform more complex calculations. Now, before we look at how to perform these basic operations in using our database, let's begin by performing some the same operations with just any number, any numeric value on any number, any let's just pick some numbers and perform these operations on them. All right, so I would have to add a new tab again and call these basic calculations. Let's call it basic calculations. All right, great. So we have the first tab, basic calculations. Remember I explained in the previous video that if you want to perform calculations using SQL without extracting or using any database or record from a database, all you need to do is just to call your select function and then go ahead and add two values together. Run the query, you see your output. So when you add 74 plus 984, you have 983, you have your output 1057. Okay, let's take the mode of this sum. Let's okay no, let's not do this. Let's say we want to calculate 56 mod 3. So 56 mod 3 will mean divide 56 by 3 and return the result. So I mean return the remainder. So when we divide 53 by 56 by 3 and return the remainder, let us do the calculation in our head, and at least we will know the expected output. So 56 by 3, that is 1, 2, 26, that is 6. So that means we should have a remainder of 2. Let's run this query to see if to give us a remainder of 2. Great. So that is actually correct. We have remainder of 2. So the percentage sign is actually the modulus operator. It will give you a remainder when you divide one number by another. If I do 9 mod 3, I should get 0 as my output, because when you divide 9 by 3, the remainder is 0. So that is a remainder. That is the answer, 0, a remainder operator. When you divide, say, 10 by 3, you should have 1 as the answer, because 10 divided by 3 is 3 remainder 1. And when you run this query, you see you have 1. So you can also perform multiplication times. 10 times 3, when you run the query, you have 30. So you can also perform subtraction. 10 minus 3, you have 7, and so on and so forth. So I can also do square roots. So let's perform square roots. So let's say the square root of uh let's take the square root of 10 SQ. Okay, so why is my keyboard not working again? Have I done anything wrong? Oh my god, what is happening here? All right, so let's perform. We're going to perform. I want to take the square root sqrt of The square root of 10 times 3, that is the square root of 30. Let's see what that will give us. So okay, it's saying that execution failed with errors, no such function sqrt. So what's the square root function here? Let's see, square root sqt or srt. Okay, so I don't think I know the square root function here in SQL, but one way to go about that is to raise this to the power of 0.5. Let's see if this works. Let's raise to the power of 0.5. Okay, it still doesn't work. So I think this is not how to take the power. SQL doesn't understand this carats. Let's try double asterisk. This works for some functions, and SQL doesn't understand that. So if you want to perform some functions, all you need to do is to check out, browse the SQL query for those. So let's say uh um uh SQL square roots, what's the square root syntax in SQL. All right, let's just get the square root syntax in SQL. So it says SQL has sqrt function used as the square root or the power. Okay, we can use the power function. Okay, let me just specify SQLite actually, because some of the syntax vary. Okay, it's still showing me the same results for SQLite. Square roots using, okay, so I don't think he has. Let's check all instead of looking for video. All right, so here's a list of functions. It uses sqrtx, but why is it not working for SQLite? How do you take square root in SQLite? SQLite provides an inbuilt function called sqrt. Yep. So I tried that out. I don't know why it's not working out. Let me just take the square root of sqrt of 4. This should be 2 if this is working. Okay, still not working. This is really strange. All right, let me try the power function. Power of 4 comma 2. Does this power function, or let's try pow. Okay, I don't think it's still working. The pow power function doesn't work. The power function is not working. Okay, this is actually really strange. So since these functions are not working, I wonder why they are not working. Okay, let me just go ahead and use sum and see what's happening, why I'm not getting the result. Okay, the sum function is working. All right, great. So how to display, let's see if there's a way to display all the inbuilt function. How to display all inbuilt function all inbuilt functions in SQLite. How to display all inbuilt function in SQLite. So to display the inbuilt function in SQLite, we use this. Let's check this site to see if there's any useful results there. Let's go ahead and check list of the core functions. So these are the core functions in SQLite. We have globe, like xy, absolute, SQLite, description of the inbuilt scalar SQLite SQL functions. So this is what each of these functions stands for. You can go ahead and read up these functions from this website to learn more about them. So I'm trying to see if I'll find the square root option, the square root function. It's strange that sqrt is not working here. Okay, this is really strange. Well, I would try and apply the same function. Let's try out workbench. I'll use the same function in workbench and see if that works. So I'm wondering why it's not working for SQLite. It's really strange. Okay, let's sign into the local instance, and then I'll ignore this. So I want to go ahead and use the select. So I'm now in workbench, right? I want to try the sqrt function, sqrt of 4. So I think this will work since it has identified it. Yeah, so you can see it's working here. The square root of 4 is 2. That had given us the answer. We're trying to perform the square root of 10 times 3 the other time. Let's see what that gives us. Okay, so that's working. So SQRC is working right here in Workbench, but it's not working in SQLite. Very, very strange. So we can also take power. Let's try the power function here, POW. Okay, this is the power function. So you have POW and P and power. Let's see what the difference between both of them are is. So power of 10. Okay, so that's like 10 raised to the power 3. Now we has completed PO power by using the power function. Let's see if we have the same results. The same output, 1000. So it means that POW power and power, they actually stand for, or they actually perform the same task. All right, so this is just me trying to explore the different options about performing basic arithmetic in mathematics. For this SQLite, it doesn't recognize some of the functions, interestingly. All right, let's just go back to classroom and then focus on what we were discussing earlier. Come back to classroom. We were performing basic calculations. So we want to now execute some of these calculations using Chinook database. The first task we want to calculate is perform is to calculate the total price for each invoice. So let's go ahead and calculate total price for of each invoice. We copy the whole queries and come over to the SQLite. I just converted that line to a comment. So what we're doing here is we are selecting invoice ID. We want to see the invoice ID. We want to see the total, and we also want to calculate the total times 1.2 as total with tax. So this is calculating total price for each invoice. So why do we calculate the total with price? So coming over to this side, in the query, we selected the invoice ID and total columns from the invoices table. Additionally, we performed the basic calculation to add 20% of tax for each invoice total and display it as total with tax in the result. So that is what we refer to as calculating total price. We are adding the tax to see the total price. So the tax is 20% of the total, and 20% of the total is just like you're saying 1.2. Yeah, we are increasing that amount, the total amount, by 1.2. Okay, that is 20%. So when you run this query, let's just execute this query. You will see the output. So this is the total of this for invoice ID 1, but with tax it amounts to 2.376. The total invoice for ID 2, which is 3.96, with tax, it amounts to 4.752, and so on and so forth. That is the first calculation we've executed by multiplying the total by 1.2, which is simply say you're adding the tax to that total. And the second example we want to look at is calculating the total duration of tracks in milliseconds. For total duration of tracks in milliseconds, all we need to do is to take the sum of milliseconds from the track, and this should return just a single value. When you run this, let's try and paste this and run this query. So running this query will result to just one single value. It will return multiple rows as the first output gave us for each track ID. This one we have multiple rows because this is kind of a row-wise calculation that was performed here. But in this case, we are taking the sum of all milliseconds. We want to see total duration of tracks in milliseconds for every single music, all the songs that are recorded in the database. Once I run this, we have just one single value, which is this. So as you can see, in milliseconds, we have the total tracks for all tracks and under each album in our database, resulting to the figure you can see on my screen. Okay, so that is that. Then let's look at the next query that explains the total concept. So now, explain the basic calculations concept in SQL. Now we are interested in calculating milliseconds. We want to converting milliseconds to seconds and rounding the results as given. So of course we know that we have 1,000 milliseconds in 1 second. So to convert milliseconds to second, we have to divide that millisecond by 1,000. Okay, so here's the query. We're selecting track ID, name, milliseconds, and we are dividing the milliseconds by 1,000 to convert it to milliseconds, and we want that result to be returned in two decimal places. So you would see that we're using 1,000, 1,000.0 because we want the output to be presented as a decimal number. Okay, copying this entire query to SQLite, we enable us execute the query. Let's convert the first line to a comment. So coming over to this place, let's just run this query to see the output. Select, highlight all the queries of interest and hit your execute button. So with this, you would see that for each track ID, we have the track in milliseconds, the length of the track in milliseconds and in seconds. So 343,719 milliseconds is actually 343.72 seconds. So we can also convert the seconds to minutes because by dividing by 60, because 60 seconds make 1 minute. If you do that, let's just go ahead and add that line to this. So I would come over to this side, and let's see, can we come to the next line just for readability sake. So let's come over to the next line again, and then add a round function. I want to round the duration in seconds, divided by 60. So I'm trying to uh, further convert this duration to minutes, and I want this to be done in two decimal places. So I will display this as the duration in minutes. Okay, duration in minutes. Let's execute this query and see what we get as our output. Execute. So there's an error. So I think the error is because I actually took this query to a new line, so it's not accepting that. Let's just return the query back to the same line. Okay, since they are all on one single line, taking it to a new line will make SQL see it as you're bringing a new clause. Let's try to run this again. Okay, I think that is not the case. We still having error. What are we not doing right? Okay, so is something joining together? Didn't I leave? Oh, I see. So this is the reason why we're having the error. There should be a space, a comma and a space between the round and the end of the milliseconds, the duration in seconds. Okay, we're still having another error. So let's look at this. Execution finished with errors. No such column as duration in seconds. No such column as duration in seconds. So is that a mistake in the way this was spelled? Let's check that correctly. We have duration in seconds. All right, so it's well spelled. We spelled that correctly. Duration in minutes. So actually, yes, I remembered. Actually, this calculation cannot be performed because on the select column, SQL is yet to register this name in memory, right? Now, I cannot use a name I'm giving to a column. I can't use the name to perform another calculation on the same line because this name hasn't been registered in memory for SQL to have seen it and use it to perform another calculation in that same line. So that is the reason why it's not returning a result. The way to solve this problem is to perform your calculation using the calculation that was done initially. So I'm going to use the same line of calculation. Instead of using the alias, I'll copy the same calculation done here and replace it with this entire value here. I'll replace it here. So what are we doing? We are calculating the round of milliseconds by 1,000 and returning the answer to two decimal places. And the answer we get there We also uh, calculate, we also divide that answer by 60. So I'm going to divide that answer by 60, divided by 60, and return the results in two decimal places also, which will make it appear in the duration in minutes. Let's try to see if that will give us an output as expected. Yes. So we've actually calculated this result finally. So again, like I said earlier, the other time we had an error because I was trying to use a name that was yet to be saved in memory to calculate, to convert the duration in minutes. So because this name hasn't been saved to memory, and that was because, or that is because rather, all the queries or the lines of codes I'm writing are all under the select clause. So if the next line contained the my second calculation, then I would have been able to use this alias in my calculation. So for me to solve that problem, I had to replace the alias that I used earlier with the calculation, this entire calculation that was performed to convert it to seconds. I just copied all of this code that converted it to seconds, and replaced it with the alias that I used initially. And then I also divided that value by 60 and had to round it off to two decimal places, and I called this duration in minutes. So with this, you will see that we've been able to convert the length of the tracks by to seconds and minutes. So this means that this track is actually a 5 minutes, almost a 6 minutes track, right? Almost 6 minutes. This is almost 6 minutes also. This is a approximately 4 minutes track, and so on and so forth. So that is how to perform basic calculations in SQL. Let's see if we have any other interesting example. So we have about two more examples. Calculating the average invoice total. I'll allow you to perform this yourself. Go ahead and run this query and see the output. Then calculating the difference in total invoice total and average invoice total. So also perform this particular, uh, run this query, and then try to understand the output of the query. Okay, so great. I hope you enjoyed this long video. This video is actually long. We've dealt intensively with basic calculations in SQL. You can explore more by performing more calculations and just playing with the figures and the data you have with you to see different angle of perspective of your data. Thank you for watching this. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you understand everything that was said in this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or any of the support with us. All right. Thank you for choosing Datafied Academy. I'll see you in the next video. The next week, because this is going to be the end of this week's video. Thank you and goodbye. Or I'll see you during live session. Yes, during live session. Goodbye.